She is one of the most successful stars who ever lived. A girl named Jennifer who grew up in the Bronx and went on to make her mark in music, movies, television.
It was always my plan to be an actress, singer, dancer. Boom, done.
Along the way, she's generated a lot of headlines and she's done a lot of interviews. But I am proud to say that this is one of the most revealing interviews of her career.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to make you cry.
No, I know you didn't.
It was fun.
I know you didn't.
It's Jennifer Lopez as you've never seen her. Here it is, the Jess Kegel interview. I think the best way to sort of tell your story is to sort of go through your albums, because they all happened at very interesting points in your life and in your career. And there were a lot of brave things. I mean,
it's very smart of you, by the way, because people don't realize for artists how autobiographical all of their music is. I mean,
yeah,
it's
much
almost
more autobiographical.
It's mostly autobiographical. There's occasion where you'll like just get a random song from somebody and you're like, oh, I love it.
Yeah.
But mostly you gravitate toward a song even if you didn't write it because you live it.
Right. So the interesting thing about your very first
album. So good
album,
on you.
Well, that's good. Well, hopefully we'll see. We'll see how you like this.
See if it works.
So On the Six, back in 1999 was your first album.
Yes.
And what I always forget is your acting career was going like this.
Yeah.
I mean, you had done the greatest movie ever made, Anaconda, which is probably, I bet I've seen it like 8 times. But you had done, Selena really made you a superstar.
Yeah.
And then Out of Sight really showed that you can act.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my favorite, Anaconda.
Right.
But your acting career was going like this, and then all of a sudden, it seemed like all of a sudden, I'm going to make an album.
Right.
Why did you want to switch to just doing music, or did you think even then I can do both?
I always thought I could do both, and there was no switch. For me, I was going to continue doing movies while I made this album. It was always part of my plan to be a musical artist because I felt I was. I started in musicals, I did dancing and singing and acting. For me, it was always all one thing. It was never like 2 separate things. It was, I'm gonna be an actress, singer, dancer, boom, done. And however that manifested itself, but I knew I wanted to make albums, I knew I wanted to make music, and I knew I wanted to make movies.
And Waiting for Tonight?
Yes.
From that, did you know that was going to be the massive hit that it was, or was it a total surprise?
No, the minute I heard it, it's funny. They say, and now I know this to be true, but back then they were like, some people have an ear for what's not only a hit, but what's right for them. And I just, it was just something that I always had. I know when I hear a song, if it's for me, and I have a tendency to pick ones that are, can hit. So it was just, when I heard Waiting for Tonight, it was funny. It had kind of a freestyle feeling, if you know music like that. And we knew we had to update it. We knew we had to make it more dance at that time. It was like 1999 at that time. And we had moved out of that sound into a new kind of dance sound. And I was like, I love this song, but we have to take kind of that little cha-cha stuff out of it and make it more pop and dance. And the producer was Rick Wake, and he was like, I totally understand, I got it. And he took it and did the vocals, and he took the vocals and he just did a whole new track.
You also had Sean Combs, obviously.
Yes.
I think you were dating at the time.
We were kind of on the low dating at that time, if I remember.
But still, we didn't know it.
Yeah.
But also, so he's forceful. He's a personality.
No, he was great. It was almost like I was meant to meet him while I was making my first album, because he helped me a lot. He was kind of like a mentor in a way, not a mentor, but like guided me.
Right.
He had a rough way of doing it, but he did.
Yeah,
he did guide me.
I didn't mean he was.
He'd be like, baby.
I didn't mean he was violently
You don't want to
forceful.
do that. No. He had a way of communicating that put it very plainly, like, that sucks. Don't do that, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. Don't forget. And I was smart enough to sponge up the things that were useful, whether it was image-wise, because he was an A&R person first, if you remember.
Right.
And so he was really great with artists, and he would share his knowledge with me all the time, whether I asked for it or not.
And Emilio and Gloria Estefan, also there. Like lots of collaborators.
Great people, yeah.
But it was your first album. And I guess what I'm asking is, why weren't you intimidated by those people and just did what they said?
I wasn't, it was funny. It was Tommy Mottola who kind of brought a lot of those people in. Like, he was great friends with Gloria and Emilio was a big producer at the time. And he's like, you got to do something with Emilio. And so, he played me music, and I don't know, I just felt I had been in the business long enough, acting and stuff, that I wasn't intimidated like that. I was used to being around people. And Buffy, I did a video with him, and the first day he was like, I love you, so I was like, all right, so why be intimidated by this guy? I obviously have the upper hand here. Terrible.
So
no, he was great.
The next album, J.Lo.
Yes.
When did you embrace the name J.Lo, which came from fans, right?
It did. Actually, I remember the first person naming me that was Heavy D. He came into the studio, I was in the studio, and he was like, he would always call me Jenny Lo or Jennifer Lo, just shortening my name a little bit. And before I knew it, I was hearing it in rap records, people were saying it, fans started calling me, and I was like, okay. And so I shortened it down to J.Lo, and thought that would be a good name for the album. I wasn't naming myself J.Lo. I thought, oh, this is my music persona, kind of. Like, it's J.Lo. It's more.
And who's J.Lo? Like, when you say that persona, what do you think? Who do you think she is?
The girl who sings and loves to sing and dance. That girl is J.Lo. The girl who loves, who's a little bit streety and a little bit glam.
Is she packing heat?
She's not packing heat. She's a lover, not fighter.
So this was 2001, J.Lo came out. Love Don't Cost a Thing, obviously. Yeah. But this was a gigantic hit.
Yeah.
Probably, I think, your biggest album.
J.Lo might have been my biggest album, yes.
Huge. But also, you were also at the same time, I think, launching your very, very first clothing line.
Yes. What was funny, after the first album, I was successful. We had success on that first album. So the second album was like, they were throwing money at me. Now I'm out there dating Buffy in front of the world. It's very blingy. It's very ghetto fabulous. It was all of those things. And so, of course, I'm thinking like, what about love?
Yeah.
Like, who loves me? The girl in me, the romantic in me was, and by the way, I same thing with the first album. It was like, if you had my love, how would you treat me? It was all of those types of sentiment, Waiting for Tonight. There was a romantic, that also is J.Lo. And we shouldn't leave that part of it out, because that's the part that drives all the music and all the lyrical content of everything that I do, which is always about love. But this one was, J.Lo was like a different era in my life, where I realized, like, okay, now I have money, now I can have anything I want, but what does it all mean?
Yeah, life was big, but still that yearning.
But there was still so much for me that didn't feel right, and it had to do with my relationships and love, and that album was really about that for me.
What did you learn in your relationship with Sean Combs? It was a very productive relationship.
It was.
And some bad press also.
Oh, God. I mean, we went through some very traumatic events together, But I guess, I like I said, I learned a lot about the music business with him. I also, learned, personally some things that, I've always not been one to talk too much about that, but just, it just helped me grow. It helped me grow to, what I wanted, and kind of learning to stand up for myself and things like that in future relationships.
Your third album, This Is Me Then, was there was a lot of Ben Affleck in that album and around that album.
Yeah, it was all Ben Affleck.
It was all Ben, and that's what we remember. And I'll ask you about that in a second, obviously, but. It was also an album where people began to realize that you were a real student of music because of the way you brought in certain influences from certain artists that you remembered, a lot of 70s soul that came into that. And that was something that people discovered about you with this album.
For me, that's my favorite album I've ever made. And it's not because of the whole been part of it is because of the musicality of it. It sounded, and I am proud of it from the first note. First note that comes on, I'm proud of that record all the way through to the end. I had Bruce Wadeen work with it, me, Corey Rooney, who had produced my first 2 albums. We did it together. It was like the 3 of us in there, A&Ring the record, putting it together, choosing the songs, writing a lot of songs on that. When we started with that song writing, where we always used to take a lot of submissions in the first couple of albums, this one we started with I have a lot to say.
You started from scratch.
I started from scratch. I was actually, if you remember, well, you guys don't remember because you don't know when we started writing, but it was the summer. I was filming Made in Manhattan, and I was divorcing my husband at the time, Chris Judd. And so there was like a lot of sadness. And if you hear the album, it has kind of a melancholy feel to it, too. There was hopefulness, and there was, love on it, but there was also, it's like a mix between like ending one love and starting a new love. And that's, to me, what that whole album was. And just the sound of it for me is something I'm super proud of.
Wow. Which
I've never talked about before in my life.
Well, if you think about the timing, it is really interesting because the J.Lo album comes out the same week that The Wedding Planner with Matthew McConaughey comes out. It was the first time that somebody had a #1 movie and a #1 album in the same week.
Only time.
So those were heady times.
It was crazy times.
She would like to make it clear that it was the only
well,
time.
Because I always ask everybody, this can't be true. This can't be true. Somebody else must have done this before me. And I am always told, no, it hasn't been done. You were the first person that did it, ever. And I was like, wow. I mean, that's still something that even to this day, I'm like, are you sure? Are you really sure?
I think when we look back, there is so much been in your favorite album, which is interesting because when the public looks back on that time, it was such a public relationship and there was such a spotlight on you guys that I think what gets lost is that was a real intense love.
It was. It was. I really felt like when I met Ben, I was like, okay, this is it.
You can tell from the album.
Yeah, and I wrote it in that album. You can feel it. But it just, sometimes I feel like what you think people are and how you see them when you love them is different than when they reveal later. And I think we didn't try to have a public relationship. And we just happened to be together at the birth of the tabloids. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of the hot couple at the time, and we may have played into that at the beginning because it was fun, and then it was not fun. Then it was like destroying us, and to be on the cover of magazines. I remember they did an interview with Ben after we had broke up, and they handed him a stack of magazines like this, and they were like, these are all the covers you guys were on while you were together. And it was just all tabloids. And it was like, oh my God. And it was just a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure. And I think, different time, different thing, who knows what could have happened. But I will say that there was a genuine love there. And you hear it in the music.
The Jenny from the Block is from that album. And it made me think about your relationship with your fans. You talk about how you played into it in the beginning, which is probably true and always a dangerous thing. And a lot of young stars discover that at some point. But your relationship with it, I thought it was less showing off than your fans, which is your core group of fans, these young women who were like you growing up.
Yeah.
You wanted to share this with them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? I mean, for me, it was just always like, I think Jenny from the Block was really about like, can you believe this has happened? Like, because the second album was big, and you said it was my biggest album, but the third album, we were living in the bigness of what had happened, as far as success and stuff like that. And it was like, it was just crazy. It was crazy to think that I could reach that level of fame, that level of success, Again, I was, filming Made in Manhattan at the time with Ray Fiennes and Bob Hoskins and all these amazing actors. And I was like, how did this happen? And I think Jenny from the Block, again, every song comes at the perfect time. And I didn't write Jenny from the Block, but I felt like people and the people who wrote it, as they do, we writers kind of channel things, is that they were feeling like she's still the same person that she was. It's just all this stuff is happening to her. And the minute I heard the song, I was like, oh my God. Yes, I am still Jenny from the block. Oh my God, please. And it hit home because I think there was a lot of blingingness, because it's so part. I mean, look at me right now. I feel like
you've become a little less blingy.
You know what? I've grown Sometimes. A little bit more demure and chic in my old age here. But it's when you grow up how I grow up, where you have holes in your shoes, all summer, then you appreciate these things, and it's like, in a way, it's like a symbol of like reminding yourself, like, okay, I'm doing okay. You know what I mean? I don't know, but I always loved the style of it. Also, if you think about the era I grew up in, it was like the Run DMC era.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you couldn't have enough chains, you couldn't have enough big earrings. The earrings couldn't be big enough. Like they were hitting your shoulder down here. I still love a big hoop. You know what I mean? Like genuinely love it. Like that's just part of the style that I had when I was growing up. It was part of in me always, and it still is.
Rebirth, 2005. Yeah. I mean just the name of that album.
I know it's blur. It's a blur a little bit that time because I think I was trying to be reborn. I wasn't so successful.
You had taken a lot of time off, or some time off.
Yeah.
To pull your head together. Tell me about that period of time when you kind of went a little bit quiet to collect yourself and decided to name this album Rebirth.
Well, Mark and I had gotten married, and his idea of what music in the music business was, and my idea, it was like two different worlds. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I was very influenced because I was always a huge fan of his even before we met.
He had worked on a previous album.
Well, he had sang on my very first album. I don't know. I felt like at that time I lost my way a little bit of who I was in trying to make the marriage and concentrate, because I had been married twice before and I didn't want this to be a failure, that I just put all my heart and soul into that.
It's a lot of pressure.
I forgot who I was as an individual a little bit and as a person, and I let other people and things influence me instead of knowing who I was at that time. And that's why I say it's kind of a blur a little bit. And that album was me fishing, I think, and trying to be reborn, hoping for a rebirth, because I knew deep down I was a little bit lost.
The album is dedicated to Paige Patterson, who was a cancer patient who you had met.
Yeah.
And it died.
I mean, that was the only clear thing about that whole.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I had started my work with the Children's Hospital, and I met a whole group of kids. And Paige came down to the set, and I just got to know her very well. And I remember her so because she was talking about her hair and how she missed her hair, and she had a hat on. And I was like, well, it's beautiful. Even when you don't have the hat on, you look beautiful. And it was just, she just touched me so much, and the struggle of, what a sick child goes through. And it's just, they're still just kids, and they just want to be hanging out and doing their thing. And she was a little girl. And I just, when she passed away was right around the time before my album came out. And I just knew that I wanted to dedicate the album to her because she had touched me so much,
It's interesting that that's sort of the one clear.
That's it. That I remember.
That is the one clear thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you say the name of the next album because you will say it so much more beautifully.
Is it a Spanish album?
This is, Como.
Yeah, Como Ama Una Mujer.
Why a Spanish language album?
Well, Mark and I were together, and he and I talked about, I said, maybe I should make a Spanish album. He was finishing up his album when we got together. Amar sin mentiras, which is To Love Without Lies. And I met the producers, of course. We spent a lot of time in the studio, and I met the producers. And I don't know, it was kind of just naturally like, you should write stuff for Jennifer. And I was like, I would love to do some stuff in Spanish. I've always loved, I haven't done anything like that. And it just, you know, Mark was like, I'll produce it, I'll executive produce it, and we'll work on it. And, you know, I just pushed them to work on something for me because I just loved it. I just loved Spanish music, and I just knew these guys were special, who were writing his album and working on it. I still work with one of the producers to this day. Yeah.
There's a lot of that in your Vegas show. I thought the best parts of the Vegas show are the Latin music.
Did you?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, I love, it's a really, when I was putting the Vegas show together, I thought we have to have a great Latin section. And I think it's because it's one of the things that I do that nobody else really does in American music, you know, that they can kind of go between those two worlds and dance in that way. And that really is, honestly, probably where I feel most comfortable, you know, because I grew up around it. My mom, every holiday, it was no English music. It was all Spanish music. We hated it, but, you know, because we wanted to hear like whatever was the cool music at the time. But all the parents wanted to hear only Spanish music. So I grew up with it. And it is so in my blood as far as like how I move. Even when I dance hip hop, I feel like it has a little bit of a Latin flair to it. You know what I mean? It's just who I am. And I didn't realize the power of that as far as how it relates to me as an artist until I did the Celia Cruz. I knew when we did Selena, but it wasn't until years later when I did the Celia Cruz tribute on the American Music Awards, how much an American audience loves it, how they respond to it. And I was like, wow, because we did this whole thing for Celia Cruz on an English program in front of an English audience. It was the biggest thing on the show. It was just crazy. And I was like, wow, that they appreciate this when I do this, you know, and I just wanted to, it's like I think about my audience and I think about what my fans want. I think about what people want to see. When I'm doing a show, I feel like that's my responsibility as a performer. And so I wanted to make sure we had a great Latin section in the show.
There's, you know, there's an enormous Latin population, obviously, but also it's the proximity to Mexico.
Right.
That music seems to be in our DNA, and we forget it. It reminded me of the time, you know, when On the Six came out, your very first album. That was you and Ricky Martin, and I mean that was the Latin music explosion, and it never went away. We just don't call it an explosion anymore.
Well, no, it was.
We forget how.
You know, Tommy Mottola, and he just did a whole documentary on this at that time because it was Gloria Estefan, it was Enrique Iglesias, it was Ricky Martin, it was Mark Anthony, it was myself, it was just Shakira. There was so many at that time that were crossing over. Not just crossing over, because I never crossed over. I was always in English music, but a lot of Latin artists were crossing over and doing English music. I was coming up and doing my, you know, pop music, and it was just at that time, I think, you know, Tommy really had his finger on the pulse of what was happening. And he was like, yeah, these Latin artists are amazing artists who sell out, you know, arenas and stadiums, and the world needs to know about them, you know.
Your next album, Brave, is 2007.
Yeah.
Kind of marked the end of it marked the end of your relationship at that time with Epic.
Right.
Which has got to be.
That was a tough time too.
I was gonna say
now we're into the dark ages.
Are we into the dark ages?
those two albums for me.
You came out of it.
Yeah. Well, you see, I was trying to find my strength.
Yeah.
The fact that I even named the album Brave, it was just like, you have to do this. You have to start finding your way again.
You wanted Rebirth and you wanted to be brave.
Yeah. And
it was tough.
It was a tough time for me. Like I said, I really felt like I didn't know what my value was. I didn't know who I was as an artist, and I just was trying to find my way back to me. Because the only way you can be a great artist is to know yourself, you know? And I had just lost that for a while, you know, trying to kind of build a perfect life or something, or what I thought was the idea of happiness. What I realized is that loving yourself and being yourself is happiness.
It's so interesting
because
because
can't look for other outside things to fill that, you know?
For whatever reason, sometimes the most confident, successful people get into a relationship and they help the other person build the life they want.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's we can talk about relationships and how we get lost in them and all the different reasons why, because everybody has different reasons for it. Why we have this hole that we want to fill for 5 days. We could stay here for 5 days straight and do that. But I just, suffices to say that you do get lost, and the real victory is finding out that you don't need anything or anybody but yourself, and that attracts the right people and the right thing.
In 2011.
Yes.
A great year for you.
Yes.
An album called Love, ? Why the question mark?
Because I was figuring it out. I was asking the right questions now. I was figuring things out. This is so crazy that we're doing this with my albums, because it is so freaking true.
Fascinating, right?
It's so true. You are so spot on. It's great. But yes, here's where I started asking the questions. Here's what changed in my life. I had given birth.
Yeah.
I had given birth, and the kids honestly just gave me a new direction.
That was 2008.
Mm-hmm. They just made me realize, like, what was real and what wasn't real, and they just changed everything. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cry.
Do a little Kleenex.
I'm so stupid. No, I won't let the tears come down.
Okay.
I'm an expert
You're
at
trained.
this.
You are a professional when it comes to crying.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to make you cry.
No, I know you didn't.
Fun.
I know you didn't.
But
I cried for everything.
I'm just trying to get to on the floor.
Right. I know you were like, on the floor is an amazing hit. It was #1 in 35,000 countries. Yes. No, but it's true. It's just there is a thing that happens, and on the floor, honestly, was me, like, again going, okay, get back out there. You're an animal. You're a beast. Come on. Pull up your panties and get back out there.
What kind of pressure was there? Because this had to be a comeback.
Yeah.
Sort of, because there had been some disappointments in there.
Absolutely.
So On the Floor, I guess, was the first single, and it hit.
It hit without me even, like, it leaked and hit.
Yeah.
Well, here's what happened. I had the kids, and I started working on some more music. And I don't know, I just kind of I started thinking about life in a different way. Like I said, I started asking more questions of myself, of love, of what was right, of what was wrong, all because I wanted their life to be great too, And I knew for their life to be great, my life had to be great, and I needed to fix some things. And that is where all kind of the music came from. And On the Floor, the minute I heard it, even though it's not a romantic notion or a deep song, it was a straight, beastie dance song. But the minute I heard it, it became my anthem.
Your
you know
anthem.
what I mean? And I was like, I remember I was working with Red One, and he played me like 10 songs. And I was like, oh yeah, we'll do this one, this one, this one. And in this little room, they were working on the Floor. And I kept going into that little room going, when are you gonna be done with this? Mm-hmm. And he's like, we're not done yet. And I was like, yeah, just write the second verse and let's go. I mean, this is the song. And I knew it immediately that was the song. It had the mix of the Latin and a mix of the kind of rapping in the verses, and it was everything that I was wrapped up into one. And it was also saying, you gotta go hard. You gotta get on the floor. You got to get yourself together. You have to do this right now.
It was a sad time too, because a marriage was coming to an end.
But it was the right thing. And I think that's why I think the empowerment has to come first.
Right.
And then, of course, it's sad. It was devastating and awful to think that we were not going to make this last, because I think both Mark and I both thought at the time we'll be together for the next 40 years, until we die. And for the realization to start coming in that wasn't going to be the case was probably the biggest disappointment of my life so far.
In 2014, you were album, AKA is the album, I Love You, Poppy.
Yes.
Prince Montana, which I love. Booty. You put the word booty into the lexicon.
Yes.
You and Iggy Azalea.
Yes.
This is what you said. you said, I'd gone through a lot in my life right at that point. I'd been through a divorce, a lot of things had happened, and I really felt like it was a turning point in my life. So this was 2014. So that, when you say it was a turning point while you were producing that, this was a long process.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't all get solved with On the Floor.
No. It was like many dark years, a few dark years, and then trying to figure it out, and then kind of coming out the other side and going, this is who I am. I'm not going to take myself so seriously. I'm going to have some fun with my life. I'm going to have some, I have an amazing life. I had been working on myself a lot, with therapy and with self-help and with books and with tapes and everything I could find to have some sort of spiritual growth as a human being. And it was kind of coming out the other side, and that's, that was coming off the tour and realizing I had value as a performer and value as a person. Again, it was just, all of it was I was just finding my strength again in all of it,
And Max and Emmy turning 8.
They turned 8.
So all that's a big suddenly they're people.
Yes.
They have opinions.
Oh my God.
They have attitudes.
So many opinions, so many attitudes. They're amazing because they only know my lifestyle. And so that's a lot of traveling. There's, irregularity in their schedules for school. They'll be homeschooled, and then they'll be in school, and then they'll be back out of school, and then we're in Russia. You know what I mean? It's like so many different things. And what I love about our lifestyle is that it teaches them that change is constant. It happens, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. And they adapt very well to everything. And I just try to give them all the extra love I can, so they always feel like, okay, no matter where we are, what's happening, or how much mommy's working, we're safe, we're good.
How do you juggle, so obviously Mark Anthony, the father's in
Yes.
their life, you have a great relationship
Yes.
with Bo.
Yes.
How do you make sure all of those relationships stay healthy? Because it seems like they are.
They are, thank God. I just feel like, I don't know, I just always trying to do my best to keep it all good.
Because that would seem like a full-time job
I think
without
it's
Vegas.
easy. Yeah, and that is a full-time job, trust me. But it's my first job to do that. You know
Right.
what I mean? To make sure that's okay, or else I couldn't do all the other things I do. I'd be too preoccupied all the time with whether the kids were all right. And, Bo and Mark are a big part of that. So my relationships with them, it's always, our references are always in reference to the kids. What's best for them? What's good for them? Let's talk this way in front of them. Let's do this. Let's not show them this. You know what I mean? It's always about how it all starts from that. And then once they're happy, it's like they just add happiness and joy into the home, and then everything else kind of goes from there. We can everybody can chill.
People have been obsessed with your wardrobe on Idol. People are upset. It looks great.
Thank you. We have a lot of fun. It's almost like I'm a human Barbie, and my glam team, we just create different looks every week. And I remember the first season we did Idol, the goal was let's never have the same hair twice.
Wow.
That was a goal.
It's this little goal. That's quite a goal.
But it was actually got very difficult because we used to shoot 40 shows a season.
Don't make it easy on yourself.
No.
Do different hair every week.
It was fun.
How do you feel about Idol coming to an end? Because for the past 5 years off and on, that's been a big, big part of your life.
It's sad. It's sad. It really is. I mean, it's like I had a moment last week when Trent, one of the contestants, Trent, sang A Simple Man. And, he's always talk about being on his farm and talking to the cows, and you know what I mean? And he's a simple guy. It was like being privy and witness to those type of moments, and see somebody now on a world stage, because it's not just the States, it's all over that people watch Idol, and see him realizing his dreams and singing a perfect song. He sang A Simple Man from Lynyrd Skynyrd, and it was just a perfect moment. And I was like, wow. I signed on to do Idol for 1 year, and I wound up doing it another year, and then another year, and then going off and doing a tour, and then coming back and doing it 3 more years. It was just because I truly love it, and I think America loves it, and that's why it's been on so long. And so to see it kind of reach its end is sad.
Do you think it had a positive impact on your career? Because a lot of people say they didn't really get to know who Jennifer Lopez was until they saw her in that environment.
It's true.
It humanized you.
It did.
Is what your agent might say.
Yes, is what the press might say. But it was funny because I always felt, because I was in the public eye, that people, even though they wrote a lot of things about me and painted a certain picture of me, I always felt like people knew who I was. Like they could feel my heart. But I realized that until American Idol, they really didn't, until they saw it in front of them and they really saw, oh, she's a person, she loves music, she's super emotional, she cares, like all of those things that they, I guess, like you said, it made me more human to them. And it did so much for me, not just in my career, because it kind of it was like a reintroducing me after having the babies and being away for a while into the public eye again, but also for my self-esteem. Because, you know, you hear things in the press over and over about how you're not a nice person or you're demanding things, even though you're not, even though it's not true, it makes you feel bad about yourself. You know, it wears you down. And I had realized that I wasn't feeling great about myself. And then when I was on Idol and people were seeing me and they were like, we like her. It honestly, I was like, oh my God, people like me. That's nice. You know what I mean? Like,
it's funny that you would, I remember in the very beginning of your career, you kind of got the label of a diva. But I have to say, over the last few years, what you hear from people is she is the hardest working person, and said with a lot of respect.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know how all of that started, you know, like at me asking for white candles or white this or sheets and
by the way, your white
craziness.
Candles are over there.
I know, everybody's like, she loves white. And I'm like, white flowers everywhere. And I was like, I mean, I like that. It's nice. It's not necessary. But somebody was asking for it,
right.
You know, and it gets attached to you because they know you like a candle. And it was that I was demanding those things. I think that, and it wasn't me, that gave me that stigma. And it was unfortunate because I always felt like I was the same person, the same hardworking person. I had to work extra hard. You know, I wasn't in show business. I didn't live in LA. I didn't have any connections. I was just a dancer from New York, and I was trying to make it. And little by little, I had my little stepping stones and found my way in, you know.
Shades of Blue.
Yes.
Okay, it's my new obsession.
Thank you.
Tell me about, first of all, developing the character of Harley and why that particular character spoke to you.
Yeah, you know, we took like 2.5 years to develop this, and it was just about getting the script right and the characters right. We wanted to make a real character piece. The, you know, cop show. When you think cop show, you think more procedural, and we wanted to make it more character. And so that took time to get all the balances of that right with all the different characters. Harley, you know, is a complicated person, you know, and she's caught in a hell of a situation, you know, because she's between her family and, you know, her daughter and her cop family, and just trying to navigate this situation she's in with the FBI. We knew that it would be more than a cop show, that it would be more about human nature, more about loyalty and betrayal and all the different things that we struggle with as human beings, decisions we make from moment to moment, trying to do the right thing, and in moments just doing the absolute wrong thing and thinking it's the right thing.
Well, she's a bad cop who thinks she's a good cop.
Right. Well, no, she's a good cop who does bad things.
I see. Okay.
Who does bad things sometimes and makes bad decisions, but all in the name of trying to make a good decision. You know what I mean? So,
but all
which is why I think people,
root for her,
right? Because people understand that she is actually trying to do the right thing, but then sometimes she's lying so much that you're like, okay, now she's just lying.
Well, one of the most interesting relationships in it is she's done everything to protect her daughter, and you understand every lie she's told her daughter, particularly pertaining to the daughter's real father. And you understand why she's done all that, but it has caused this huge gulf between her and her daughter. It's caused so much distrust. I think that's out of a lot of interesting relationships in the show, that's the most interesting.
Yes, because she realizes her daughter not is only onto her, but kind of turning into her. You know, she's all of a sudden lying, and the person that Christina thought her mother was one person is finding out she's not. I'm also finding out she's not who I thought she was either. You know, she's a girl who goes out in the middle of the night, smokes pot, does this, has a boyfriend, and she was just not privy to any of this information. Meanwhile, they're thinking they have this super close relationship. So it's been a great reveal, an arc for the two of them to go through what they've been going through. But it's scary, I think, and I think about this as a mom, and I did when I was playing the scenes. It's like one day your children just are gonna be adults, you know, and they're gonna see things in a different way than they do when they're a kid, and it's just gonna be so hard to watch them, you know, grow up. And what you want to do, I think about this is with my own kids, is like do stuff that they'll be proud of, and I think that's what Harley struggles with as well. Is there any way I can save this situation? One of my favorite lines in the season, which nobody was really listening to her because Caddy was high at the moment, but it's like, is there any play here where my daughter comes out proud of me? I don't know, you know, and that's what it comes down to. You want your kids to be proud of you.
You're juggling Shades of Blue. You've got Vegas going on, the residency there,
yes.
Which is fantastic. I saw it.
Thank you. Yes, you came to my opening, and I love you.
And you've also got American Idol.
Yes.
Obviously. Give me an example of the way you juggle these things. I know you're not doing everything every day, but how does it work?
It was funny. While we were shooting Shades, it was like we were doing everything every day, because I shoot Shades 4 days a week, and then I travel on the weekends to go do Idol for 2 days a week. And then during that whole time, I was conceptualizing and starting arrangements and concepts for the Vegas show. So last year, I was doing all three things. At that time, I took on meditation.
Is that really? Did that help?
I did.
When do you meditate?
20 minutes a day in the morning and at night. And it was necessary. It was almost like my brain, for the first time in my life, I felt like, okay, you bit off more than you could chew. But it was there were 3 great opportunities, you know, to be part of American Idol, the farewell season. Shades was gonna be to finally get the green light and go, and then, you know, getting my Vegas residency. It just all happened at the same time. I didn't plan it that way, but that's how it happened.
Does it seem like total chaos, or does it seem like everything's fallen into place?
No, it feels great. It feels great. I've always been a hard worker, and I've worked hard for many, many years now. And to be at a point in my career where I'm, you know, been in it for 20-something years, and be getting the opportunities and be having a moment like this where I get to, as an artist, do all the things that I love to do still, and on the level that I'm doing them, like you said, on Shades of Blue, with, you know, all kinds of, you know, great buzz, and the Vegas show with all kinds of great buzz, and being part of Idol, and that being part of my legacy, you know, being on one of the greatest television shows ever. You know, all of it feels like such a blessing, and it feels like, okay, you know, I've lived my life and tried to grow and tried to get better in the past few years, really markedly made an effort on that, and it shows. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's the fruits of your labor of trying to be a good person and trying to do the right thing and continuing to grow as an artist, as a human being. It works. It proves to me that it works, and so that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Who do you talk to in your? I mean, there aren't that many people on the planet who have had the experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
Dealing with fame, dealing with
yeah.
employees, dealing with children, all of it. Who do you talk to? Who does it feel good to talk to you?
I mean, I have great girlfriends, you know, and you know some of them. You know Elaine, you know Leah, you know my sisters. I have a lot of great girlfriends, but honestly, none of them have dealt with a lot of the things that I've had to deal with. you know.
But they've been close enough to it.
Yeah, close enough to it, and they understand it. I've had to learn how to navigate it myself. There is nobody's writing the book on how to be famous. You know what I mean? Like, or what it is when you get fame when all you wanted to be was an artist. You know, when all you wanted to do was sing or dance or, you know, act or be in a movie. Nobody writes that book. And I know because other people ask me, other artists now ask me, like, what should, you know, and I was like, you just have to handle it with grace and humility and be grateful for every moment. That's all I can tell you, because it's a tricky thing. You see people succumb to it all the time. You go, oh, why did this artist kill himself? Or this one wound up doing this, or this one self-destructed. It's not easy. It's not for everybody. You know what I mean? But to be looked at and scrutinized and judged and, you know, hailed, even being hailed is scary. You know what I mean? Like, you're amazing. Really? Okay. I know I am amazing. I'm amazing.
Like, yeah, you weren't with me yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much stuff, and it's a lot of energy to deal with.
You seem to enjoy fame on some level.
I don't know if I.
No, not anymore.
Enjoy fame. I appreciate it, and for the things that it makes, you know, for the kind of fun things it brings. You know what I mean? But it's a monster, you know. It's a monster, and you have to be careful with it, and you can't toy with it. You know what I mean? You have to respect it and not play with it. It's not something to be played with, and I learned that early in my career. And so I just kind of respect it and live. We cohabitate nicely, and that's it. And honestly, my focus is mostly on creating, not on the fame of it.
You mentioned your friend
not
Leah.
Mostly, all on creating.
You mentioned your friend Leah Remini a second ago.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's asked you this. Last year she wrote a book.
Yeah.
What did you think of the book? You were in it.
Yeah. I wish she had let me read it beforehand. I let her read mine beforehand. No, it's fine. It was no big deal. You know, I'm glad that, you know, I could be of support to her during that time. And of course, we're true friends. So we are always supportive. She was very supportive of me she was in my book too. I mean, we're real friends. But yeah, I feel like that was her truth, and we all have to be true to ourselves, you know, and she felt like that's what she wanted to do, and I support that's her journey.
This is called the Kegel Exercise. And all you have to do is fill in the blank.
Okay.
Close friends describe me as...
I don't know. What do close friends describe me as? Well, I've heard Elaine say many times that I am not judgmental. I think because I get judged a lot, I do not judge other people for what they do or say.
Strangers describe me as...
And probably as a diva, because they don't really know me.
Only I know that I am...
Worried a lot.
My last meal would be what? And I would eat it with whom?
Absolutely Puerto Rican food. And it would be with... I would like the option of having it with my whole family, but with my kids for sure.
I can't believe I'm going to ask you this. The song that always makes me dance is...
Locked Out of Heaven, right now. It changes year to year. Ask me in another couple years.
The movie I've seen the most times is...
Probably West Side Story. And now The Notebook.
The book I would take to a desert island.
Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life.
It may be heresy, but blank is overrated.
I can't say what...
I think I'm really good at...
I feel like I'm a good communicator, like I can get things across. But then sometimes when it comes to like my feelings and stuff, like I can't say what I really want you to know.
I feel sexiest when I am...
When my hair is curly and I'm a little bit tan.
The thing about myself I've learned to love is...
That I'm flawed. I actually love that part now, which I used to hate it because I'm such a perfectionist.
The teacher I'm most grateful for is who?
Probably my acting coach, Aaron Spicer. He taught me a lot.
The animal I would compare myself to is?
A lion or a tiger. Some sort of very ferocious cat.
I could talk about blank for hours on end.
Boys. Love. Relationships. All that category. That area.
I can sum up my life in this hashtag.
No hashtag. Sum up my whole life? I would say hashtag amazing. It's been amazing. It is amazing.
That's it.
That's it. I'm
The
done.
interview's over.
The quiz is over.
Holy moly.
Lord Jesus, thank you. God, that was hard. No.